Hey team, Justin here. We're going to talk about your at-home fitness workout for Friday, March 13th, starting with the warm-up. We're going to start with 1 minute pigeon pose on each side, 10 pause squats, 5 per side Cossack squats, also sometimes called the lateral lunges if we're moving across the room, 5 per side reverse lunge with a dynamic high step, and then 5 inchworms. Let's get to it. All right, we're going to rock through this warm-up, starting with our pigeon pose. Down on the ground. One leg out in front of you. We're gonna let that other leg trail behind you. The more you can have this front leg perpendicular to your body, I often line up on a seam if you have these seams, hardwood floor, whatever you've got. Line it up so that leg is straight out in front of you. Square your hips up to that leg and then lean forward as much as you can, feeling a big stretch. If I turn sideways, you can see this here. Leg still perpendicular, leg straight out in front of me. Other leg trailing behind me here, and make sure we don't lean forward to get more out of this. Stay nice and square, lean forward. Straight legs is totally cool. If you can get down your forearms, it's totally cool. If you can drop your chest towards the ground, I can't quite get there, super cool. Either way, we're gonna get 1 minute per side of this stretch. Next part of our warm-up, we have pause squats. You're gonna set up in that nice squat position. Feet usually just outside of shoulder width. If you're happier with your feet right under your shoulders, I'm not gonna argue with you about it. Something nice and comfortable. Most people, toes forward or slightly out, chest tall, nice and square, trying to spread the ground with your feet. Drop down nice and low, knees always tracking out over your big toe, heels on the ground, low as you can come. Pause for 2 seconds, up as quickly as you can. So again, tall, nice and low, 1, 2, up. You can do whatever you want with your arms. This is an old habit for me. If you're happy just having them by your side, crossing your chest, extra bonus points are going overhead. 10. Next part of our warm-up, Cossack squats. Really wide stance here, way outside of shoulder width. And we're gonna squat back and down, back and down, back and down. This heel always stays on the ground. If you can keep that other heel on the ground, bonus points, but I don't really care. Really stretching out this adductor, getting into your hip, staying as tall as you can. You can absolutely put your hands on the ground for this. Don't feel like you have to win the circus trick. If this is often a challenging movement for you, come on down, hands on the ground. See what it's like to really walk yourself into that bottom position. Hang out there. Come back out to the other side. If you can do this nice and tall, super great. Roll right into the other side. Slow and controlled here. 5 each way. Okay, next part of the warm-up. We've done pigeon pose, pause squats, Cossack squats. There's still more squatting motions. Reverse lunge with a high step. Feet about hip width apart. You're gonna step back, kiss that back knee to the ground, and this is the high knee, driving off that front leg, knee up and down. Notice feet stay about hip width apart. I'm still at that same width. I am not lunging on a tightrope. If you lunge and you find balance is really tricky, that probably means your step is too narrow. Step back, kiss that knee to the ground, drive up hard. If you find kissing the knee challenging, miss the ground. I would rather have you not quite get there, under control, and drive up than crash that back knee into the ground. 5 on each side. You can break it up however you want, but 5 in your right, 5 in your left. Last part of the warm-up, a favorite here, inchworms. Set up, you just need enough room for your body to spread out. Legs nice and long. Reach forward as low as you can, trying to get to the ground. From here, only walking your hands. Keep your legs as straight as you can. Walk out as long as you can and keep a nice tight position, whatever that is for you. From here, staying tight, legs long, press through the ground, toes walk up to your hands. Take a breath, 4 more times. So 5 altogether. We're gonna do this warm-up twice through. All right, let's talk about Friday's Metcon. These at-home Metcons are generally built to sort of mirror what we're doing in CrossFit classes today. If you're normally a base 6 or a non-CrossFit person, don't worry. This is all totally approachable. We're just using that as sort of a template to build the at-home workout. That said, today, 10 rounds for time, 12 jumping squats, 6 book ground to overhead. Time cap is only 12 minutes. Let's look at what that means. All right, so 10 rounds, 12 jumping squats, 6 ground to overhead. Jumping squats, same standards as all of our squats, pardon me. Below parallel, you must leave the ground at the top. So from the side, we're looking for that hip crease to drop below the top of that knee. Heels, of course, still on the ground, knees still tracking over your toes. Explode out of the bottom and jump. Accelerate on the way up. This is analogous to a thruster or a wall ball. The more power you can generate on the way up, the easier this is gonna be. This is something you could potentially go pretty quickly on. As long as you get all the way down, you can go right into the bottom of that next squat. Ground to overhead. We're gonna say that RX for our book ground to overhead, Fundamentals of Anatomy and Physiology, 9th edition. If you don't have the 9th edition, technically this won't be RX, but I encourage you to try it anyway. Really, any big book, something with a little bit of heft to it, importantly, something you don't mind if it gets maybe a little beaten up. I love using books for fitness at home, but this is the kind of thing where the edges might get a little banged up or the corners, which is why I'm using Tim's copy of the book. So ground to overhead, analogous to a plate ground to overhead, the book has to tap the ground, lock it out overhead. So down, up, down, and up. Looking to move pretty quickly with this. Make sure that at the bottom, we're not getting into a terrible rounded back position. So eyes up, find something on the horizon to look at, tap, finish, tap, finish. If you want to use something heavier, you're welcome to it. I've certainly done this with bags of flour, loaded book bags, multiple books, things like that, but almost anything. Don't get too hung up on what the thing is. Something that has some weight to it, you're gonna move. This is fast. 12 minutes is not a lot of time for 144 squats and 72 book ground to overhead. So you want something you're able to move pretty quickly and something you don't mind getting all banged up because it's pretty likely in that 6th or 7th round, after you finish that ground to overhead, if you're moving, you might just drop it, keep moving, so you don't want to care about it too much. Again, we're using Tim's copy today. Hope you have fun.